Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you on this June 30th, 2025. I've got all of your stories for your rush hour ride to work. And that's right, we are wrapping up the first half of 2025. Can you believe that? Time is just flying by. And this is the week where none of the news stations are going to be, offering you that hot gossip. They're mailing it in, preparing themselves for a nice long 4th of July week, but not over here. We got it all for you, including Bombshell updates in the Laura Owens pregnancy scam trial. It looks like Laura's mom might be getting charged. No, not yet, but they're talking about an accomplice. So we'll get into that, and then some more information on the sham subpoena in the Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively lawsuit, as we have a vicious response by Jennifer Abel after her text messages were stolen from her phone in her iCloud. What she has to say about Blake Lively trying to kick the blame down to somebody else. And then we got information on that big, beautiful bill that is supposed to be passed this week through Congress, which is going to add trillions of dollars of debt, kick people off their health insurance plan. Well, let me tell you something. Joe Rogan ain't having it. I'll explain why. And then we have a conversation around Jake Paul, as he's more progressive than you think. Trust me, the proof is in the pudding. All these stories and more, it starts right now on The Rush. Well, before we jump into the news today, I wanted to give a health update. I know a lot of people have been asking me about my health after this crazy scare that I had the last couple of days. I have to tell you, over the weekend, it got worse. Involuntary muscle issues. I actually lost most control of my hands. I couldn't even grab a cup of coffee, let alone open a door. My hand control is getting better, although it is slowing down my Photoshop skills. I got to tell you, tested negative for Lyme disease, COVID, flu. My platelets a little low, but they said everything else was perfectly fine. It was an attack on my body of epic proportions. I don't know what happened to me, folks, but I am just beginning to hopefully recover, although I'm not sure if I'm out of the woods yet. But thanks to everyone for all the kind words. It's been scary. I don't know what the heck's wrong with me. Absolutely scary. But if I get any updates on today's Patreon, I'll let you guys know. Patreon.com/Dave Neal. All right, let's kick this party off talking about, greed in the capitalistic variety. Uber CEO discusses ride prices and why they've gone up by so much.
A lot of riders that Uber rides have gotten a lot more expensive over the past few years, more than the rate of inflation. What's happening here?
Well, I think it is about inflation, and the average Uber ride is now a little over $20. Our drivers need to make a living, and so really the demand for drivers and pay has gone up, and that translates into the ultimate price of the Uber ride.
Concerns over driver pay and benefits persist, even as Khosrowshahi's own compensation has surged.
You're compensated about $40 million a year. What should people make of that?
I think that, we as a society, I think as a country, clearly we've done unbelievably well economically. But I do think that the inequality that you see as it relates to the top end compensation, like someone who's lucky enough like me, and the middle class, et cetera, that is too big a chasm, in my opinion.
Too big of a gap?
Yeah, I do think it's too big of a gap.
So too big of a gap, yet he's not going to quit cashing those paychecks. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Expect these uber rich people to not cash the paychecks? And speaking of uber rich people, here we have Katie Couric slamming the new bride, Jeff Bezos' wife. I guess she said yes. They got married in Venice after the prenup went through. Katie Couric says, "Welcome to the 80s when big hair and conspicuous consumption ruled. Apparently, tacky is back." This is Lauren Sanchez, his new lady. Again, he cheated on his wife with her. Love, it just finds itself in mysterious ways. Come on, look. Jeff Bezos is in his 60s. She's in her 50s. Do you really need the whole veil? It's like, what are you, you're a Puritan? Oh, she's finally going to give away her V card. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Weird stuff. But again, there's a lot to talk about regarding the wedding. Bezos and Sanchez stars take to the canals of Venice for next party. Kylie, Kendall, Oprah, and more. And it's just like, good golly, nobody in Venice, Italy wanted them there. There were protests. You had Tom Cruise was there. You had Tom Brady was there. Orlando Bloom and Sydney Sweeney. Now, Orlando Bloom just broke up with Katy Perry, the lady who launched herself into the stratosphere, not metaphorically, physically, on Jeff Bezos's penis-shaped rocket. And then we have Sydney Sweeney, who just broke up with her long-term fiance, I believe. So you got Tom Brady shooting his shot, Orlando Bloom doing some rebounding, Sydney Sweeney. I mean, listen, they're all going to mingle. Why? Because a guy who sold books online became super wealthy. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on out there? Now, we'll talk more about this billionaire issue that we have in wealth inequality. We'll talk more in the next episode, so I don't want to harp too much time on it because we have a lot of other stuff to get into. Jake Paul might not be a billionaire yet. He's on his brother's a billionaire, but he won his boxing match against Chavez Jr. in a unanimous decision. Took down another former boxing champion, defeating Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. by unanimous decision on Saturday. Did you guys watch? I missed this one. I only watch when he fights out of shape Mike Tyson. But either way, a lot of interesting things were said by Jake Paul, but they don't have to deal with this fight. They actually have to deal with how he's becoming very progressive. He might not know this yet, and that's okay. I'm going to explain later on in the episode why that is the case. So I've got a lot to get into real quick here with the story around former Bachelor Clayton Echard's very short fling, Laura Owens. As you guys know, she tried to sue us. She threatened to sue me for defamation. She tried to get a restraining order on me, but we put together a campaign to make sure the truth came out. And now the state of Arizona, which I revealed on Friday, wants me as a key witness. I say key. We'll have to see how key I am. Well, now they are actually talking about new charges. State's allegation of aggravating circumstances. There are aggravating circumstances. That's what Clayton said after she tried to blow him for the second time. He's like, these circumstances are very aggravating. I'm like, I know, Clayton. Take a day off. The state of Arizona, by and through undersigned counsel pursuant, alleges that the following aggravating circumstances exist in this case. The offense involved the presence of an accomplice. Oh my word. Monday. We have a good one for you today. The defendant committed the offense as a consideration for the receipt or in the expectation of the receipt of anything of pecuniary value. Now, there's a lot here. I'm going to have to make separate content about this. I've got lawyers writing in. I'm going to be interviewing and speaking with Omar, the Tilted lawyer, tomorrow. We're going to get more information about this. But who is the accomplice? Could it be her attorney, David Gingras? I don't know. Could it be Jan Black, her mother? A lot of folks believe the mother was involved in a lot of these crimes that were going on. Now, it appears as though the state didn't initially want to bring some of this information up. So is it information they found out after putting together their initial set of charges? The defendant testified or will testify falsely at trial or another court proceeding. There is evidence of prior acts of the defendant for which the defendant was not convicted. The defendant has past bad conduct, even though that conduct may not have been or did not result in a conviction. There's a need to protect future victims from the defendant. What the hell is all this about? We'll get into this with Omar. We'll get all the details, and we'll have more from other lawyers, as this is absolute insanity playing out. It's like we're watching a documentary in real time. But if there ever is one to get made, let me tell you right now, I want in on it. All right, so let's go to this next. We actually have a lot to get into here, but we're going to be talking about Blake Lively's shell company, Van Zandt. And first, we have Without a Crystal Ball sharing that they have not filed required statements for 4 years and are no longer in good standing. So how could they even, try to get a subpoena if they aren't even a real business? That's kind of one of the big questions that are being asked. Now, if you aren't caught up on the case, Justin Baldoni was accused of a lot of things by Blake Lively. Blake Lively received private text messages from Justin Baldoni's PR company. The way she did that was through using a sort of side company she owned called Van Zandt. She used that company to get a subpoena to Stephanie Jones so Stephanie Jones could share her former employee Jennifer Abel's cell phone, text messages and things like that, because you can't just share that information. It's like an employer contract, it has to remain confidential. But this subpoena that they got, the day that they got the subpoena for the text messages, Van Zandt, this sham company, dropped their fake charges that they were going to do against Jane Doe or John Doe 1 through 10, just random nobodies, and the court case went away. And now it's like, well, you can't do that. Now, whether it's illegal or just immoral, I'm not really sure. But people are really digging into the sort of entertainment value that's coming from this case. There, of course, was the contortion by Blake Lively, as she would say things like, Justin called me sexy, Justin called me hot. And, when you hear from Justin's side about what actually happens, he says this is documented on camera while filming. And this has been pointed out by people to say, if this thing goes to trial, they are going to see every one of her claims, or at least many of her claims, being refuted by cold, hard video evidence. Video evidence that'll say loud and clear in 4K digital video that what her claims were being made on paper don't line up with what actually happened in reality. Now, if there is a jury that is going to watch this, first of all, get your popcorn. But secondly, what we're going to see play out, no one's going to believe anything she says when they see that she completely misrepresented his sort of tone on set, right? So I wanted to share with you guys some of the paragraphs here from the response by Jennifer Abel to the Van Zandt community. And by the way, that's Blake Lively. I know, hold on, this is confusing, but this is Jennifer Abel's response, because Van Zandt and Blake Lively are basically saying, we don't think we should have to share any of this. She's kind of kicking the can down the road. And Jennifer Abel, the person whose private messages were exposed, she's the one saying, So let's do this. Let's just take a quick break for a commercial. When we come back, I'm going to read for you guys some of the bombshell responses by Jennifer Abel, as she's not taking no for an answer. Okay, here we have the answer and counterclaim. Abel contends that Stephanie Jones, her former boss, and her company Jones Work, collectively Jones, collaborated with non-party Lively and her counsel to fabricate a sham lawsuit, the Van Zandt action, for the sole purpose of obtaining documents that Jones pirated from Abel's phone and iCloud accounts, without waiting for discovery and anticipated litigation against Justin Baldoni and Wayfair Studios, and without notice to Abel or the Wayfair parties. Lively admits that the Van Zandt action was a sham, contrived for the sole purpose of obtaining Abel's text messages as part of investigation preceding Lively's filings of her claims against the Wayfair parties. Abel has, because what happened was Stephanie Jones always said, no, we got him through subpoena, but then everyone said, where's the subpoena? And then we found out it's because it was through Van Zandt. And guys, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. Luckily, the internet and the mommy sleuths out there were able to do that job. Abel has subpoenaed Van Zandt for information relating to Van Zandt's ownership, i.e. whether it is owned or controlled by Lively or her husband, Ryan Reynolds. A copy of the subpoena Van Zandt served on Jones, the Van Zandt subpoena, and the documents that Jones purportedly produced in response to the Van Zandt subpoena. Van Zandt objected on the grounds that the information was irrelevant, and that as a non-party, Van Zandt should be required to produce documents that were available from parties to this litigation. So Van Zandt is trying to say they are a non-party, which is rich because Van Zandt is Blake Lively, and she is very much a party. So then they continue. Nor can Van Zandt argue with a straight face that communications related to the coordination between Jones, Lively, and Van Zandt relating to the Van Zandt action and subpoena are irrelevant, particularly in light of Van Zandt's implicit admission that all other documents related to the subpoena are relevant and discoverable. In fact, communications concerning the Van Zandt action and subpoena go to the crux of Abel's claim that Jones and Lively conspired to obtain Abel's stolen information and used the sham Van Zandt lawsuit to provide a veneer of legitimacy for Jones' transfer of stolen information to Lively. Such communications will also show whether, as Abel suspects, Jones provided data taken from Abel's stolen phone to Lively before service of the Van Zandt subpoena, and the Van Zandt subpoena was a ruse contrived by Jones and Lively to cover up what they knew was a wrongful disclosure of Abel's communications. Yeah, my guess is this. This is what I think happened. Jennifer, what the hell's her name here? Stephanie Jones knew, she snooped on her former employee, Jennifer Abel. She hated her. Abel was ditching her, cutting her out and going straight to Baldoni. And she said, I'm going to get her. So she has her company issued phone, hacks into it, finds her iCloud and all that stuff and goes, oh my gosh, I've got gold. Then Lively's lawyers, they're like, okay, listen, you can't give this to us. This will be thrown out. We need a subpoena to obtain this. And then that's how they contrived this plan. Somebody is in trouble for this, folks. Somebody's in big trouble, and I don't exactly know who. So without a crystal ball shared, hello, Blake, Van Zandt is you. Stop acting like you had any right to Jen Abel's phone, and if you have the contents of her phone, why can't you prove the SMEA campaign? I'll wait. Yeah, so very interesting stuff. So there it is, and it shows the officer is Blake. Officer named Blake Reynolds. I'm guessing that's Blake Lively. But again, shows the, principal address is this kind of like random building and all of that. But so I don't know. We'll have to see. I keep saying this. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But what else can we do but wait and see how the sham subpoena plays out? I'd love to know everyone's thoughts here. Do you believe that this Van Zandt subpoena is going to be the thing that sinks Blake Lively? Will this be the week that this thing settles? When we talked about settling, most of these cases do settle before they go to trial. And I said, if it's going to settle, it's going to settle the week of 4th of July. That's what I initially said. It's a good week to settle. Everyone's out barbecuing. But I told you guys this, I will fire up the machine. I'm taking my podcast equipment with me no matter where I go. We will fire up the machine if this thing settles. So make sure, double check that you are subscribed. Okay, we're going to get to some non-Blake Lively stuff. I know. Breath of fresh air. Here's something interesting. We're trying to find out if we're in a recession or not. A recession is when you have negative or zero growth in GDP 2 quarters in a row. Well, Fox is now reporting, Fox Business, that the growth for the GDP in quarter 1, January, February, and March, was actually negative. It was the worst since 2022. Have a listen.
First quarter GDP, however, the final read is negative 0.5%. We were expecting a loss of 0.2% for first quarter GDP. This is the first negative read that we've actually clocked since the first quarter of 2022. That's according to the Commerce Department. But again, that GDP read, this is actually even more of a loss in the range.
So there it is, more of a loss than they initially thought. Now, what does this mean? I don't want our economy to fall into a recession, but, there's a lot of uncertainty out there, tariff wars and what the hell is going on. So we'll have to see what happens. Now, here's something very interesting I wanted to share with you guys. I've got Jake Paul here, who just won a professional boxing match. He's got a friend who needs a lung transplant, who is getting stiffed by his insurance. And Jake Paul, I think, seems to be a pretty good guy. Voted for Trump. Trump, of course, never put together a healthcare plan, right? He always talked about how bad he hated Obamacare and it was the worst and we're going to redo it and this and that. And then he said he had concepts of a plan, but never put together his own healthcare plan. And now, we literally have an atrocious healthcare system, privatized insurance, which are just these middlemen, mobsters that just take our money. And then when we actually need our healthcare, they say, sorry, you're not covered. Well, it looks like Jake Paul is finally seeing how bad it is. Have a listen.
It's just insane. Insurance is a scam, and it's so sad. And right when you need these companies, they're not there, and it's up. And his insurance denied him to get the double lung transplant, which is also one of the most expensive surgeries, which is why they denied it. And it just sucks. It sucks that no one's doing anything. I was obviously super busy this week, so we're figuring out the donation now. But none of these people like Dana or anyone stepping in, so I feel like I have to do something, and that's really all it is.
So Dana White is who he speaks of, a 500 millionaire, and he don't give good health insurance to their employees, the people that fight, the gladiators that risk it all in the octagon for everybody else. Now, Jake Paul is himself a 100 millionaire. He's got the money. His brother invented Prime Energy. His brother is a billionaire, at least with Prime stock. So they are worth lots of money. He doesn't need health insurance. He can pay cash for any procedure he wants, really anywhere in the world. And you just wish you could get a better haircut. No, I'm kidding, Jake. Now, but the point I bring this up is because he's been advocating for what appears to be universal health care. I don't know if he knows it yet, but he's been advocating for a better system that takes away privatized insurance, as they're really doing nothing. And I think if he uses his platform, not just to raise money for his pal, but to realize that he could help maybe 60,000 people a year's lives be saved. Do you know how many people in our country die every year because they don't go get their health checked, a mole or a lump or a cough? They don't get it checked because they know the price is going to be astronomical. If you are taxed at the right percentage, you actually will pay less in the long run than private health insurance. We already know this. The system's not perfect in other countries that have universal health care, but it's certainly rotten here. Well, there we have it. Twice in the same week, we have Jake Paul pretty much sharing progressive policies, saying we got a problem with privatized insurance. It's BS. We need to do something about it. And then what he said a couple days ago about Dana White, the head man, the boss, is that, as a 500 millionaire, he makes all this money. His fighters get paid like $12,000 to fight. Why can't they get paid more? Why can't they have better insurance and health care and things like that? So it sounds like he wants to sort of get rid of some of this wealth inequality that exists. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Well, let me remind Jake Paul this. Maybe he doesn't know this, but he's had his issues with the Democratic Party. He voted for Trump. And I just want to remind everyone out there, it is not left versus right that is the issue. It is up versus down. It is the billionaire class that, lobbies the Democratic Party and the Republican Party to really not do anything about the system. It is the healthcare industry that lobbies the parties to not do anything to fix the system. The system is beyond broken. Okay, the system cannot be fixed as it is. It needs to be revolutionized. We need to do what every other first world country has done and provide guaranteed health care to everyone in this country. We need to find a way to do that now. It is an emergency, and too many people are dying out there. So, Jake Paul, you can save your friend's life, but you can save a hell of a lot more people's lives with your platform if you want to speak on behalf of universal health care and finding a candidate to run for office that can do just that. Now, Jake Paul is not the only person who voted for Trump who is speaking out against some of these bogus policies. One is Joe Rogan, who we covered this on Friday, has spoken out about this idea that they were going to sell like thousands of acres of public land. Well, now he said, amazing news, we did it. The public land sale has been removed from the bill, this being the big, beautiful bill. Teddy Roosevelt once said, a vote is like a rifle. Its usefulness depends upon the character of the user. And this week, the American people proved their character. But let's not mistake this for the end. This was one battle and there will be more. So my question is this, he's willing to fight publicly to on behalf of not selling public land, which I think is great. But where's that fight for all the people that are about to be kicked off their health care? Where's that fight for all the people, the poor people whose taxes are going to go up and the debt that's going to increase because we're giving tax cuts to the ultra wealthy? Like, where is the fight for them? And maybe that's coming. We'll have to see. We actually have a very interesting and passionate speech here. Senator Tom Tillis breaks ranks with Republicans over healthcare in stunning move. Here's what he had to say. He's now saying he's not going to run for office again. He's retiring. And again, it's really annoying that the only people that will speak up are those that don't want to seek office again. Grow a pair of balls and speak up before you're worried about whether or not your job will be on the line. Do what is right. And he's saying the obvious, which is I cannot vote for this bill it is going to destroy my constituents.
Oh, there's a reduction of state-directed payments, and then there's the reduction of the provider tax. They can't find a hole in my estimate. So what they told me is that, yeah, it's rough, but North Carolina's used the system. They're going to have to make it work. All right. So what do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years or 3 years when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid because the funding's not there anymore, guys? When the White House, senators advising the president are not telling him that the effect of this bill is to break a promise. And you know, the last time I saw a promise broken around health care, with respect to my friends on the other side of the aisle, it's when somebody said, if you like your health care, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it.
And of course, I think this is a way bigger issue. But again, he's not wrong. If you're going to lie to your constituents or go back on a campaign promise that you made, good luck moving forward. And I'm telling you guys this right now. I've said this for months. The Republican Party will not recover from what they are about to pass. They will not recover from it. In the Democratic Party, they just need to find a candidate who is willing to speak to both sides, to really let the people know, like, we need to figure out a system that's better than anything we've been offering. And sadly, a lot of people in the Democratic Party, they just want to play it safe. And safety doesn't fix the issues right now. Not at all. But here we have Republican senator from North Carolina understands clearly how bad this bill is. Trillions and trillions of dollars in debt it'll add, which is going to just, completely, weigh down the future of our country. It wipes away food stamps and Medicare, Medicaid, and all these other issues, all these other things that have been helpful to those in need. And it's literally just going to kill people. It's going to kill people. Why? And for what? Well, to save, I guess, so that some rich people that make over $1 million save more and don't pay as much in taxes. So there is literally nothing good that comes from this. Now, the question I have for people is, why don't more people care? Why don't more people care how badly they're getting hosed? Is it because they kind of were like, no, but we're on the Republican side, so we need to be for this? Why don't we be on the American side? Right? F the Democratic Party, F the Republican Party, right? Like, we'll figure that all out later. This stuff is bad. Let's find a leader that can bring people together. But that idea of bringing people together, that meeting in the middle, that actually doesn't mean a centrist. Meeting in the middle means a populist. And I think that is a progressive populist, someone who says, you know what? We don't need less taxes on the rich. We need more. They use technology to get ultra wealthy. Now we need to tax them to a level that the rest of people can have a fighting shot. Now, some people might say, well, Dave, that's socialism. Well, capitalism doesn't work when it's too good, right? Capitalism, late-stage capitalism, all the wealth ends up in a couple people's hands, and then what? Then it's unfair, right? We have monopolies, we have oligarchs, and then they control the government, and then what the hell do the rest of us do? So capitalism doesn't end up working in the end. It needs a little regulation to keep it fair. We don't have that right now. So again, it'll be interesting to see as they just continue to dig their grave. And for who? And for what? To please the almighty Trump? Or to please, who does this benefit? Weren't they all rich enough? And why does it take Senator Thom Tillis, who says, I'm not going to run for office again, to decide that he's going to stand up against it? And by the way, he's going to retire like the rest of them. They still get health care, right? When the senators retire, they get health care for the rest of their life. What about you and I? What about those of us that, can't get the lung they need? What are we going to do with that? Well, Jake Paul has an idea, and he's starting to use his platform for it. And I think more people will. I think we're starting to see a lot of people really understand through whatever, everyone's got a friend or a colleague or somebody who's battling these issues with the healthcare and problem. And a lot of people say, well, but the other side doesn't have a better solution. But this ain't it. So let's talk about finding a better solution. Let me know what you guys think. We'll be back this afternoon. Speaking of my healthcare, I'll give you guys updates as it comes. But so far, no solutions. I don't know what the hell's going on. So say a little prayer for me. And then we'll be back this afternoon. Join me on my live stream mid-morning, patreon.com/Dave Neal. We'll see you then. Bye, everybody.